This video was made possible with the support of our Patreon members.
Our Father, which art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done.
There is much that the field of psychiatry would rather we all forget. There's a story tucked into the shadows of American history, hidden beneath the facade of one of the nation's most famous families. It's the story of Rosemary Kennedy, a story that reveals the dark undercurrents of a profession that has long struggled with its own legitimacy. Rosemary Kennedy was born in 1918, the third child of Joe and Rose Kennedy, the powerful, ambitious family that would become American royalty.
Experienced by Miss Rosemary and Miss Kathleen Kennedy, daughters of the American ambassador.
From early on, Rosemary's development was marked as different. She was slower to crawl, slower to walk, slower to learn. By today's standards, she likely would have been understood simply as a person with a mild developmental delay. But in the context of the 1920s and 30s, and in this family in particular,
Bye, Rosie.
her difference was seen as a defect. As Rosemary grew into adolescence, she struggled in different ways. Her behavior was interpreted as erratic. Her moods were interpreted as swinging. She was reportedly prone to outbursts, to rebelliousness, to expressions of desire and frustration that were quite simply very human, but deemed unacceptable in a young woman of her class. And so, when she was just 23 years old, her father, desperate to preserve the family image, agreed to a procedure that psychiatry was promoting at the time as a miracle cure. A surgery of the soul, the prefrontal lobotomy.
The simpler approach to the frontal lobes through the roof of the orbit.
And this is where the story turns into a cautionary tale of science without wisdom. The lobotomy was not born from careful, replicable science. It was born from desperation, from psychiatry's need to be seen as a legitimate branch of medicine at a time when it was floundering in the shadows of neurology and internal medicine. It was born from the eagerness of men like Walter Freeman, popularized the lobotomy in America, performing thousands of them with an ice pick and a hammer, often in back rooms without anesthesia. Rosemary's procedure was described coldly, clinically. Her skull was opened. A spatula-like instrument was inserted into her brain.
Give us this day our daily bread.
The surgeons asked her to recite prayers and poems while they sliced at her frontal lobe,
And lead us not into temptation.
cutting deeper until her speech slowed and finally stopped. She emerged from that operation permanently damaged, her mental capacity reduced to that of a toddler. She could no longer walk or speak coherently. She lived the remainder of her life institutionalized, hidden from public view, erased like an inconvenient truth. And this is not just the story of one woman, it is the story of an entire profession that in its quest to medicalize the mind, has too often committed violence under the guise of care. Psychiatry's history is riddled with these dark chapters, from hysterectomies performed on women diagnosed with hysteria to electroshock so-called therapy administered without consent, to the modern epidemic of chemical lobotomies, the widespread careless overprescription of psychiatric drugs whose long-term effects are still not fully understood.
About 1 in 6 American adults take psychiatric drugs, a new study from the Institute for Safe Medication Practice.
The field has been and still is plagued by crises of legitimacy. The diagnostic categories shift with every edition of the DSM, as if human suffering can be neatly boxed and labeled. The chemical imbalance theory of mental illness was marketed to the public for decades without solid scientific proof, and yet the apparatus of psychiatry, its power, its reach, its authority has only grown. To this day, psychiatry remains one of the least scientific branch of medicine, reliant not on objective biomarkers, but on subjective interpretations of human behavior, codified in manuals written by committees with conflicting interests. Rosemary Kennedy's story is not an anomaly. It is a mirror reflecting what happens when we pathologize difference, when we treat suffering as disease, when we reduce the richness of the human psyche to a problem in need of a surgical or chemical solution. Her story reminds us that we must question every paradigm we inherit, that we must ask who benefits when we medicalize the mind, and at what cost.